We have Grandmaster Gukesh, the world champion, on our screen, and he takes on Praggnanandhaa there. Pragg comes in with a couple of bottles of water, a banana, and well, what a clash here at the fourth round of the Tata Steel Masters 2025. Gukesh has the white pieces, and Pragg and Gukesh have had this very intense rivalry with each other. Gukesh had a wonderful 2024 year against Pragg. He also beat him once out of their two encounters in the candidates. But in 2025, it was Pragg who got things back on track. He won the playoffs at the Tata Steel Masters 2025. He also beat Gukesh at the Sinkfield Cup. So Pragg definitely had a better year against Gukesh, and now we are here in 2026 where Gukesh is the world champion. Pragg has already reached the candidates. So if Pragg wins the candidates this year, this what the frame that you see in front of you could very well become the frame of the world championship match. So that's how exciting and interesting this is. You can see Gukesh there just calmly meditating before the game. Pragg's meditation involves him adjusting all the pieces carefully. The players are ready, the clock is ready, and they start the games. A handshake here, and this, dear friends, is the ambit recap of the day. Gukesh with white pieces opens with 1 e4. Now he had played d4 in the previous white encounter in this tournament, and Pragg takes his time and goes for the French defense. Very interesting choice because this was the same choice of Ding Liren against Gukesh. d3. Whoa. Gukesh plays the King's Indian attack. d3 is a very interesting move. d5, and this is the opening that Gukesh used to play as a kid, where you put your knight here, knight f3, g3, bishop g2, and castle. But now he plays his queen to e2. Wow, that's another nuance in a very not so well known opening at the top level. Pragg takes. I mean, there are so many ways to play this. He could have played bishop e7, knight f6, but he decides to take pawn takes pawn. And now he goes and equalizes the space in the center with e5. I have a very interesting plan for white here. Knight c3, bishop d2 and long castle. I think this is a very cool plan. But Gukesh decides to play knight to f3. He attacks the pawn in the center here. And knight comes out to c6. Pawn to c3, not letting the knight enter here. Now what Gukesh is claiming is that this structure is slightly better for me because your knight on c3 is a bit dominated by my pawn, and I'm not going to put my knight here. But the question does remain that is it worth investing 2 tempi here with queen e2, queen c2? The bishop comes out to c5. And black would like to go knight f6, castles. It seems like black has free flowing development, and bishop e2. Wow. I mean, bishop b5 was also a very nice move. I wonder why Gukesh didn't choose that. Because that was natural. You're also threatening to attack the e5 pawn. Knight comes here to e7. A small surprise for me because knight f6 is a good square, and generally if you can bring your knight to a more active square, you want to do it. White castles here. And knight to g6. The knight is looking at f4 and h4. And he goes, oh, knight a3. Now, Gukesh could have gone via d2 to c4, but he's planning to go to b5 perhaps. However, on the way, he's letting Pragg take the knight on a3, and Pragg takes it. Bishop takes a3, chopped here. Very interesting. Pawn takes a3. Now everything has become a bit weak on the queen side, but in return, what you have got is the bishop pair. So let's say a4 and bishop a3 might be very good diagonal for the white bishop. g3 played here by Gukesh. Gukesh tries to dominate now both the knights. If you see, both the black knights have a pawn in front of them, 2 squares away. And whenever there is a pawn 2 squares away from the knight, it kind of doesn't allow it to move forward. Castles here. And now knight to d2. Maybe Gukesh wants to go knight to c4, knight e3, knight d5. b6 played, maybe to trade off the two bishops here on the board. Well, these are the kinds of positions that Gukesh thrives in. Positions with structures that are a little bit weird. He pushes his pawn to a4. The queen comes out to f6. And slowly, it seems like Praggnanandhaa has some pressure here on the king side. Yeah, bishop h3, maybe some knight sack. He goes rook to d1. And black goes bishop a6, offering a trade of bishops. I think that Gukesh may not want to trade the bishops. Knight c4 might be a better idea. Yes, he plays it. So just in case if you decide to take, this becomes a very clear edge for white with the bishop pair. Rook comes to d8. And maybe now bishop a3. It seems like Gukesh's gamble with the move knight a3 has worked out in a way where his pieces are better positioned than black's pieces. Takes on d8 and Pragg trying to simplify now with trades. Such a tight game. Yeah, both players not giving each other even an inch. Rook takes d1 and now what do you do here? Logically, you bring your final piece into the game. Rook to d8. And Gukesh now has a choice. He can take, but he can also put his rook on d5. He goes knight to e3, offering a trade of bishops. Also, the rooks are getting traded. Pragg takes. And now Gukesh takes back with the queen. I believe you will also trade the bishops here on e2. He takes queen e2. And now white does have this d5 square still. Knight d5 or knight f5. Queen d8 played, taking control of the open d file. And maybe now queen b5. He plays queen b5, putting pressure on the knight and the pawn. And notice h4, h5 could be on the radar. Where will Pragg's knight be best placed? Maybe knight e7. He goes knight to a7, attacking the queen on b5. And queen d5 played by Gukesh. Clearly taking here would be a big mistake because of knight takes and you lose a pawn directly. So queen e8 played. And now h4. It's important to note that the a4 pawn is not really hanging. Let's say h4, queen takes a4, h5, and you get really passive here. Bishop f8 is hanging and the knight is kind of trapped. So he goes knight f5 first. Once again, queen a4. not particularly tempting because c7 pawn, knight, pawn hanging. So he goes knight c8. Gukesh starts to roll with h4. He's moving ahead. Time wise, 21 minutes to Gukesh, 24 for Pragg. I love this move. c5. Limiting the bishop, but h5 still. Push it forward. But he goes c4. I think what Gukesh wanted is to put his bishop on b2 to attack the pawn on e5. A knight comes to e7. And now you can trade. Takes. Taking with the knight would be bad as you lose the pawn on e5. So queen e7 makes a lot of sense. Queen takes. And bishop comes to b2. Well, maybe this h5 move is important because now with you having played here, black can go h5. And I think Pragg has understood that even if Gukesh comes back and attacks his h5 pawn trying to win it, all these pawns are very weak. So Gukesh is going for it. He goes back queen d1 to attack that pawn. But now Pragg can come up queen e6 with the idea of taking on c4. Then a4 is hanging, a2 is hanging, e4 is a bit weak. Takes here. Pragg takes the pawn on c4 and queen f5 played with the idea of h5 because it's already clear that Pragg is the one who seems to be pushing. Queen takes a2 and now h5. Because if bishop e5 is also possible, but he goes h5 here. It takes the bishop on b2. H takes g6. Taken there. And now very careful, yeah, there is a mate threatened directly. So check, king g2, and maybe just take the pawn. He takes it. And takes on g6, now threatening a perpetual here. Pragg knows there's no way to stop that perpetual. He pushes his c-pawn, forcing Gukesh to make a decision because the c-pawn is just so strong. Also, oh, there's no perpetual here, right? Because this queen h5 could be met with queen h6, stopping the check. So Gukesh goes queen e6, king h7, and he's checking on the diagonal. King g8, and now queen e6 check. If king f8, maybe queen c8 or queen f5 check. And I think Pragg's body language says he's okay with a draw. I believe there's no reason for Gukesh to try here anymore. There is no trumps that he has. And the players will agree to a draw here. King g8, queen e6 check. And yeah, king h7. They agree to a draw. A very interesting and exciting game between these two youngsters comes to an end. And I think it was well fought. And Gukesh is like, it seemed like I had something, but I couldn't prove it. And there you see Pragg saying that instead of c4 in that position, you should have maybe played h5. And Gukesh already had thought something in that position. They're always nice to see like both the players on talking terms, whether they are friends or not. That's a different question. But just this kind of curiosity after the game where you want to know the thoughts of your opponent. This is something that's very, very cool. I remember when Gukesh first played the Vaikanze tournament, he got a chance to analyze quite a lot with Magnus Carlsen, and that really gave him a lot of perspective into what top level analysis is after a classical game. And now both Gukesh and Pragg, world class players. This one ends in a draw between them. The tournament has 4 draws in 4 rounds for Gukesh, 2 draws and 2 losses for Pragg. They really need to get rolling in the second half of the event.